Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 21 meeting of the Shire of Mount Alexander Council. To start the official proceedings, I acknowledge that we meet tonight on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation, and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. All councillors are present tonight and all of the executive is represented, so there are no apologies or leaves of absence. Councillors, any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest? No. Thank you. So number 4, confirmation of minutes. Will someone move that we confirm the minutes from the meeting of council on 17th of March 2026?
Yes, Mayor, I will. Mayor, I recommend that the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 17th of March 2026 be confirmed.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Anea, thank you. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. We have no acknowledgements this month, so we'll move on to public time. Will someone move that we suspend standing orders so we can hear from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that standing orders be suspended.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cordy. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. Thank you. Now, we have a number of questions that have been submitted in writing to us, but I think perhaps some of you might like to voice your questions in person. Is Thomas here regarding EV chargers? No? Okay, well, I can read Thomas's, but just before I do, I just want to go through the public question time rules. So each speaker in addressing the council will generally be limited to one question and allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. 2, they shall extend due courtesy and respect to the council and the processes under which it operates. 3, shall take direction from myself as chair of the meeting whenever I call upon a speaker to do so. And 4, shall not attempt to enter into discussion or debate with council. However, councillors may ask questions of clarification of the speaker. Public question time is therefore minuted. And so you must state your name clearly, state if you are representing a group or organisation, and state in a few words what you wish to raise. And please also note that as chair, I may cease or reject a question deemed unacceptable under clause 12.1.5 of the Governance Rules 2020. If so, I will advise the speaker of the basis for this decision. Where deemed necessary, I may also require the speaker to leave the chamber in accordance with the governance rules. Now, I will commence by reading a question from Thomas Vandell, and the question is, can the council invest in public charging with, for example, Tesla superchargers? This will make people stop in town and stay longer. And I'd ask Director of Infrastructure, Michael Anea, to respond to this, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Thomas, for your question. In 2024, Council developed a public electric vehicle charging framework, an implementation plan for Mount Alexander Shire. This includes current and projected demand until 2030. In response to the plan, we are working closely with our neighbouring councils to identify priority locations, and we are in the final stages of developing a tender seeking interest from charging point providers to respond to the needs within our Shire. We are also exploring additional options, including a trial of electricity pole-mounted charging stations, which would be a slower option and more focused on supporting local tourism than the fast chargers that you have mentioned. You may also wish to contact your local, state and federal government representatives on this matter to raise it with them to see what they may be able to do from a state and federal level. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Director Anir, and thank you, Thomas. Is Gerardo here? Gerardo Navarrete? No. Can I ask Councillor Walker, please, to read Gerardo's question? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's on a similar topic. I would like to raise a question regarding the adequacy of electric vehicle charging infrastructure within Mount Alexander Shire. As EV adoption continues to accelerate across Victoria and Australia more broadly, our region appears to be falling behind in providing sufficient, reliable and accessible public charging options. At present, the limited number of chargers, both in terms of quantity and charging speed, creates practical constraints for residents and acts as a deterrent for visitors considering travelling to Castlemaine and surrounding areas. For residents, especially those without the ability to install home charging, for example, renters or those in older properties, the lack of public infrastructure restricts the feasibility of transitioning to EVs. For visitors, inadequate charging availability can influence travel decisions, potentially diverting tourism and associated economic benefits towards better equipped regions. Given Mount Alexander's positioning as a regional destination with strong tourism, hospitality and arts sectors, this represents both a missed opportunity and a growing infrastructure gap. Could Council please outline, 1, any current or planned initiatives to expand EV charging infrastructure within the Shire? 2, whether partnerships with private providers or state programs are being pursued. 3, how Council is assessing current and future demand for EV charging. And 4, what timeline residents and businesses can expect for meaningful improvements. Improving EV charging access would support emission reduction goals, future-proof local transport infrastructure and enhance the attractiveness of the region for both residents and visitors. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'll ask again Director Anir to respond to that. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Gerardo. In response to those 4 specific points, as mentioned just in response to Thomas, I confirm that we're working closely with regional councils and neighbouring councils to develop a regional approach to leverage the benefits and the provision of EV charging points in desirable locations. And the tender that we will release in 2026 will give us a response from charging point providers on the best locations and their ability to respond to increasing the network. In relation to partnerships, Council is indeed exploring private and public partnerships to respond to this. The expression of interest for the tender is one example of that. We have also looked at different grant opportunities, but have not been successful in recent years. We, in regard to the third point, in 2024, we commissioned a study on the needs within our Shire, and that developed an electrical vehicle charging framework and implementation plan, which we are currently in the process of implementing. And we also maintain regular monitoring of our 2 existing charging stations and regularly speak with EV owners on their requirements, which has helped us to inform the framework and the implementation plan. And lastly, in regard to your 4th question, the conclusion of the tender process, which we expect to be by the end of this calendar year, will give us an understanding of the interest from the market and for how Mount Alexander Shire Council can work with those market providers to confirm locations and have those locations established alongside those that will be established in other neighbouring councils to support regional Victoria, or central Victoria, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Gerardo. Jody, is Jody here? Jody Parker. Do you want to read your question yourself, or? Yep, please do. Just come up to the microphone and speak into the mic, please.
Sure. Is it on? Oh, yes, it is on. Hi, I'm Jody Parker and I'm a resident of Taradale, and my question is in relation to the proposed introduction of the FOGO bins. So as you know, living in a rural community, we've got options to manage our waste in different ways compared to more suburban environments, particularly in Taradale. So my question is in regards to sort of why we haven't received any requests or sort of surveys or anything like that to see whether we actually want a FOGO bin. So my question is, why has the Mount Alexander Shire Council already ordered FOGO bins without knowing how many households need or want this service? And what is the current status of the bin order? E.g., have they been paid for or have they been delivered already?
Thank you, Jody. Again, I'll ask Director Anir to respond to this.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jody, for your question. I can confirm that we released a tender in 2025 for the provision of mobile garbage bins or waste bins. I can also confirm that we have not placed an order for those bins. We've received information on what the cost may be if we were to place an order as we go forward. The quantities at this moment for the tender were based on the total number of residents that currently receive a curbside collection. So that was to help with the tender process. We don't have a final number of bins to be ordered at this point in time. When we do go through the process, and if it was endorsed by Council to implement a waste service for food and garden organics, that process is recommended to have an opt-out option in which we will then be consulting with different residents who wish who can show that they can manage their own food and garden organics in different ways, whether that be on their own property themselves or whether that be through community initiatives such as Yes in My Backyard or other potential options. So that process is yet to come, and that will come in the commencing in next financial year as we go forward. So more to come on that, Jody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Director. Malcolm Robbins, would you like to come to the microphone, please?
Can you hear? Hi, I'm Malcolm Robbins. I'm a resident of Castlemaine, and in light of my question, I mentioned that I'm a very busy user of the CBD. My question relates to the Road Safety Action Plan for the Castlemaine CBD, its context, its requirements, and the schedule, and primarily the schedule. The reasons for these questions will become apparent when I read my piece, and are related to the apparent slow progress of this what appears to be excellent plan. Road safety is a shared responsibility. Everybody has a role to play, including road designers, policymakers, vehicle manufacturers, governments, and individual road users. Council is currently 2 years into developing a road safety strategy and action plan for safer travel in Castlemaine CBD, considering the needs of cyclists, mobility impaired people and pedestrians, and has committed to the following staged implementation schedule. In June to July 2024, community engagement, that is completed. July to August 2024, develop a draft plan using the feedback from the stage 1 community engagement. That closed on 31st of July 2024. November 2024 was the schedule for releasing a draft plan. And to the best of my knowledge, as of April 2026, i.e. now, the draft plan has not been publicly released. The fourth stage is the stage 2 consultation, which was scheduled to start in February 2025. This was to collect feedback on the draft plan scheduled for release in 2024. And again, as of April, neither the draft plan nor the feedback have been publicly released. These issues are my concerns and the body of my question, and supporting information I'd like to provide is that Mount Alexander Active Transport Strategy for 2023 to 2033 presents an aspirational vision to create a safe, sustainable, accessible and connected transport network to encourage local communities to become more active more often. That's quoted verbatim from that document. Worldwide experience demonstrates that with appropriate infrastructure investment, including traffic calming measures such as reduced speed limits, separated bike lanes, people will choose to ride their bikes for short trips rather than using their fossil-fueled motor vehicles. And such safety-related transport infrastructure also delivers value to the community by facilitating walking, cycling and use of public transport, allowing more people to ditch their cars for short trips, helping to reduce both traffic congestion and pollution. Ongoing and likely long-term global fossil fuel supply chain disruption is already significantly increasing the demand for transport alternatives, including active and public transport. And I therefore strongly urge Council to expedite delivery of the proposed road safety action plan for Castlemaine CBD, as it will contribute to achieving the goals of the Council Plan 2025 to 2029, which is broadly summarised as working together for a healthy, connected Shire. And this 4-year plan outlines Council's role as to how it will pursue the aspirations and goals outlined in the community vision and other strategic priorities. And in almost like breaking news, it's also consistent with Victoria's active transport plan, which was released in November 2025 and is just becoming publicly available. So my questions are embedded in that, but I think they're fairly obvious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Malcolm. And again, I'll ask Director Anir to respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Malcolm, for the interest in this project and the feedback that's been provided for it. You're correct that the completion of the draft with the inclusion of the feedback and discussion with with the consultants on how to take that forward has been delayed. And that's been delayed simply for other work priorities at that point in time, unfortunately. However, the team has informed me that it will be released very soon on our SHAPE page for that comment, as outlined in the same plan as we go forward. It's just been delayed as we go ahead. I can also share that it hasn't stopped us working on road safety matters across the Shire, advocating for road safety issues on arterial roads, for example, or to seek funding. And we have been successful in seeking some funding, and we look forward to being able to announce some road safety measures within the CBD in the near future that are going to go in line with the feedback we received from this strategy and our overall active transport plan in the near future. So I'm looking forward to announcing those very soon about some of the work that will be going ahead that responds to the feedback from the community and the needs across our CBD. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Malcolm. Matthias, is Matthias in the room? Welcome. Come up to the podium. Thanks, Matthias.
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, I have a petition and I also brought a question, and I would appreciate if Councillor Maddock would read that for me tonight. And if I'm allowed, I would like to hand that over afterwards.
Please. Thanks, Matthias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock.
So the question here is, will Mount Alexander Shire Council consider participating in Bicycle Network's Super Tuesday commuter cyclist count in 2027 and explore funding pathways such as partnerships, grants, or community-supported contributions? Castlemaine is a leading regional cycling town in 2021. So in the 2021 census, 2.5% of residents rode to work, more than 3 times the national average, reflecting a strong culture of everyday cycling beyond commuting alone. Council's plan to collect local transport data is a positive step. However, without alignment to state and national methodologies, Castlemaine's cycling activity may remain underrepresented in the data that informs the funding and infrastructure decisions. This has real implications. The 2025 Infrastructure Victoria report recognised local cycling demand, yet deferred investment partly due to modelling that appears to underestimate current use. Bicycle Network's Super Tuesday is Australia's largest standardised commuter cycling count, producing credible, comparable data used by governments to guide planning and investment. At a time of heightened community concern around cycling safety, participation would strengthen the evidence base for future improvements. With costs of approximately $420 per site, for a 3-hour count, it may be worth exploring a mix of funding approaches, including partnerships, grants, or community contributions. A petition of 352 residents, around 10% of Castlemaine's core population, demonstrates clear community support for this initiative. In addition, a petition meeting Mount Alexander Shire Council's formal requirements, including addresses and signatures, has been completed by 10 residents and will be submitted. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Matthias.
If you could give it to someone from governance. Thanks, Matthias. Thank you. And again, I'll ask Director of Infrastructure, Michael Annear, to respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Matthias, for your support with regard to the collection of data to inform decisions regarding active transport overall, but specifically cycling. So I can confirm that Council has not signed up to the Super Tuesday count due to the cost of undertaking that count as part of the Super Tuesday account, and the belief that we can collect data and maximise available resources we have through undertaking an account ourselves. So we are planning and have discussed with different community groups to work in partnership to implement an active transport data collection count at 15 to 20 locations across the Shire, which will involve council staff and volunteers. And we've already started speaking with different groups to make contributions to this. And this is planned to be held on the morning of Tuesday, the 5th of May, 2026. The data will be similar to that's collected on the Super Tuesday account, but also allow us to address the data specifics for our Shire and particular locations. We will be communicating this more broadly very soon, and the data that we will be collecting will be shared with state and federal governments to be able to help inform decisions as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And thanks for the petition. Matthias. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a clarifying question when the time's appropriate, Mayor, as well?
Please, now's good.
Thanks for your answer, Director Annear. I'm just wondering, so Matthias highlights as a potential underrepresentation in the data, and you say the data collected here will be comparable. Do you think that data would be used in a similar way, and would it potentially fix or address that data gap that currently exists?
Yes, so we will be sharing it with the state and federal governments and other interested bodies. We hope that it is used in the same way, but it also will be used by us to help justify our position and our advocacy efforts as real core evidence to be able to speak with both the Department of Transport and Planning here in the state, but also different grant bodies as we go forward. So yes. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Director. And Matthias, thanks for your petition. I am advised that it does meet the criteria for being a valid petition to Council, and a response will be provided within 2 meetings. Thank you. Alice, is Alice Matheson here? Hi, Alice, come forward, please.
Hi, I'm Alice Matheson and I'm from the Goldcamp Castlemaine Group. And my question relates to flooding at Camp Reserve and the current planning application. On Monday, 23rd of March, the Director of Infrastructure and Development said at the community meeting regarding flood levies that Council is exploring the development of retarding basins below 4 sites in Castlemaine, including the Camp Reserve. This is to mitigate flooding and extreme weather events, and I'm assuming potentially to water the grounds. So how does this sit with the Camp Reserve planning application PA 077-2025 that is currently in play? And why is this major piece of engineering infrastructure not mentioned when it would have a profound impact on the development process and costings?
Thank you, Alice. I'll ask Director Annear again, please.
Thanks, Mayor. We've got to stop doing this. So Alice, thanks a lot for your question. I'm very happy to clarify and confirm that the investigation into the flood mitigation measures along the Forest, Barker and Campbell's Creek in the form of looking at potential retention basins has not been concluded at this point in time. And that no decision has been made with regard to the feasibility of this as a possible flood mitigation measure to support at-risk properties in relation to intense rainfall events. So it's an idea at the moment that's being explored, and because it's an idea that's being explored at the moment, that will be implemented into the future if it is feasible and if it is decided by Council to implement this idea as a mitigation measure. It's a future decision of Council that will be made, and that's why it's not included in the current planning permit that has been advertised and will come before council at a future meeting. It's two separate different issues in relation to what's been asked in the planning permit and what might happen in the future. Yep, that's why.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you again, Director. Are there any further questions from the floor this evening? Yes, please come forward.
My name is Alice. I'm a YIMBY member, but I'm not here representing YIMBY. I'm just here on my own private initiative. My question is, given no other councils in Victoria to date have achieved 100% removal of organics from landfill, is it true that councils' greenhouse reduction savings and financial modelling are based on removing 100% organics from the waste stream?
Thank you, Alice. And I'll ask Director Anir again. Thank you, Director.
And Alice, if I have not understood your question correctly, please let me know. So at the moment, we are not stating that we have removed organics 100% from our system at the moment. And our statements regarding greenhouse gas emissions include the emissions that are produced from the closed landfill that is here in Castlemaine. And we offset those through carbon credits at this point in time.
I think there has been a misunderstanding. We understand that council, they've done some modelling, looked at reducing, making savings, and they've done some financial modelling. And that modelling is based on the idea that we'd be able to remove 100% of the organics from our waste stream. So if we were going to bring in FOGO bins, that modelling kind of to support that work is, we say, perhaps flawed, because the data suggests that it's not really possible to remove that amount of organics.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. So the modelling has not been presented to council yet, so I won't go into detail, but I will confirm that we aim for separation at source that would ultimately ambitiously try to achieve 100%, but the details that will be presented to councils does not include 100% removal. We understand that it will take time if that is ever achievable into the future. So what is being presented does not include 100% as part of a discussion process that will come to council. Yep.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Director. Any further questions from the floor? I think, Bronwyn, did you have your hand up before? Bronwyn Machin, I think you were next. And then,
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor, councillors, officers. My name is Bronwyn Machin, and I'm representing Goldcamp, Castlemaine, with this question. My question is related to the cost of the proposed stadium at Camp Reserve. I have heard building companies estimate that the cost of building new homes will rise by about $50,000 as a result of the Iran war oil price increases. Even if the war stops now, the prices will not predicted to come down to pre-war levels and will stay high for some time. And this is, by the way, a building designed to meet Football League standards and doesn't have the required flexibility to meet community needs as determined by a number of council policies. The question I have is, given the increased costs of capital works, which will impact all through your budget, and I'm sorry about that, does council have a maximum dollar figure from its own budget that it will not exceed? i.e., is there a go, no-go figure here? I'm not asking what that figure is, but whether you have in your business plan that sort of a restraint on the spending on this project from our money. Thank you.
oh, Thanks, Director of Infrastructure, Michael Annear.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Bronwyn, for that question. So at this point in time, there are some early estimates of the cost of the development that's before Council for consideration. That has been built on the decision to endorse the master plan that was done a number of years ago. So those estimates were based on the entire redevelopment of the Camp Reserve facility. As we go through the process, there has been some updated estimates, but right now we do not have a further estimate of that because of the reasons that you outlined with costs increasing. And until we have a confirmed planning permit, we're not able to go to the next stage to understand what that will be. There will need to be future decisions of council in relation to what is affordable for the current generation and future generations when we get to that time. But at this point in time, that's still a decision that and deliberation the council has before them as we go forward.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Thank you, Director. I think at this point we'll need a motion to extend standing orders.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby, and seconded by Councillor Cordy. We'll extend standing orders for 10 minutes. Now, who was next? I think the... Yes. Oh, okay.
Hi, my name's Frances Collins and I live in Harcourt. This is a bit of a spiel, but so I'll just read out what I wrote. I have lived in this weatherboard. I live at 21 Craigie Street, Harcourt. I've lived in this weatherboard house for 22 years and I get on well with my neighbours, and I've been looking at staying in this home until I was unable to care for myself at that time, and that time hasn't come yet. I'm 73 years old. I'm a below left foot amputee since 2021, and I have invested a lot of time and money into this home, and I've made it suitable for my disability. I have found that living in this home has definitely kept me stronger in my mind and body as living on my own. I have had to do many jobs that I thought that I would be unable to do after losing my foot. I'm a registered nurse and I've worked until recently for Castlemaine Health in theatre admin and in pre-admissions. And I also work casually for NDIS. Until last year, 2025, I was able to keep functioning on the money that I earned and the pension. However, Mount Alexander Council has reviewed my home from the capital improved value of $640,000 to $1,150,000, an increase in my annual rates by $1,500. Since September 2025, I've been in contact with this council through phone calls, emails, and texts for a review of this massive increase with nil response. I was asked by the girls in the council offices to get 2 real estate valuations, which I did. The agents did this, and they said the house was only worth, or the property was only worth $750,000 at the most, and that the inflated valuation of $1,150,000 was grossly unrealistic. I handed these copies in to this council late last November, but goodness knows where they ended up because I am still waiting to hear a response. Only because of the kindness and compassion shown to me by your mayor, Toby Hayden, who I saw at church after the fires, that I was put in contact with the valuer down in Melbourne, Shannon Peterson, who came out to the property actually 4 days after Toby gave his number. He contacted him. He stated that I would see him, that I would hear from this council within 2 weeks, which is now 3 months ago, and yet again I have heard nothing. I contacted Margaret Jacker in the rates department several times by email and also by phone. And last month she stated that it was under review and they were waiting for it to be signed off by the Attorney General. As usual, there has been no response from anyone from council, and it's now 7 months since I put my objection in September. Because of cost of living, once again about the war and everything, and the rate increase and the big fires that we had in Harcourt, and the insurances that will all go up, it's very hard to move forward. My next door neighbour, Keith Cook, has had his rates reduced. His property was valued more than me at $1,180,000. He saw Shannon, and he's had his rates reduced from, this is quarterly, from $960 to $625. Mine is still $950 a quarter that I'm supposed to pay. I would sincerely like a positive end to this. It is like going forward and being faced with a brick wall every time you try and contact someone at this council. They seem very positive, but nothing happens. You go round and round in circles, and then you are slapped back into this quagmire again. Thank you for listening.
Thank
No,
you,
I'm a bit
Francis.
whinging a bit.
And I'm sorry I gave you an incorrect time frame on the response from council. That was my mistake. But I'd like to ask Director Landy to respond to this, please. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Francis, for that question. I'm sorry you've had that experience. It sounds like it's been fairly long and drawn out for you. In terms of the valuation, if council doesn't actually do the valuation, we rely on the valuation organised through the Valuer General. I don't know all the details of your situation, but I'm certainly happy to look into it for you.
Really appreciate that.
Let's do that. I can say that the rates team is incredibly busy at the moment. They are dealing with a number of requests from across the shire, but also in terms of Harcourt in particular, speaking with residents individually, particularly those who were impacted by the fires across Harcourt, Walmer, Ravenswood, and speaking through individual circumstances. So I'm sorry there's been a delay. I know they are incredibly busy at the moment. But yeah, if you would like to contact me, or we have your contact details, I'm getting a nod. I will be very happy to contact you and we can have a look at your situation.
Love it. Thanks.
I will follow up with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Francis. Any more questions from the floor? Yes, please come forward. Oh, who wants to come forward first? Okay.
Thank you for the chance to ask a question. My question's also about the possibility of FOGO. I know my neighbours.
Excuse me, sorry, what's your name?
Oh, sorry, Ilka White is my name.
Ilka, and are you here for
Yandell Street,
yourself?
Castlemaine. I'm here as myself.
Thanks, Ilka.
This afternoon I walked around my neighbourhood with this FOGO question in mind and counted 58 households. Of those, I know that 26 households compost themselves. I know that 22 contribute their food scraps to Yimby, and I don't know of the remaining 10. Those neighbours with trailers in my street also share their trailer space if they have garden organics to take to the tip. Through my rates, I pay for a small rubbish bin and a large recycling bin, and I put these out approximately 3 times a year. My question is, will everyone who has no need for a FOGO bin be allowed to opt out, or will there be a cap on how many can opt out? And if so, what cap will there be? My concern is that composting households may be subsidising those who don't compost. Thanks.
Thank you for your question, Ilka. If I can refer this to Director of Infrastructure, Michael Lanier. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor. So Ilka, thank you for your question. The current state government draft service standards, which will regulate in the future how councils introduce FOGO, glass, manage general waste and commingled recycling, states that councils will be required to provide an opt-out service as for their community for FOGO, for that one waste stream, based on the fact of the positive experiences that you have just shared within your community and the ability for people to manage food and garden organics themselves in different ways. At this moment in time, there is no proposal to have a cap that officers will present to councillors for consideration on the total number of residents that can opt out of a service. So if they choose that they wish to opt out of the service and they can show that they are managing their food and garden organics sufficiently, they're welcome to opt out. That's the recommendation that is currently being considered at this point in time. Yep. So those questions have not been proposed to council yet, so I'm not able to speak to those matters, but that information will be presented to the community as we start to prepare if the decision to implement a FOGO service is made. And we will have a long lead time to clarify these details. And we are talking with community groups and community representatives with regard to these matters to help get information on how best council can present the system of opt-out. But I can confirm it's our officer's recommendation that we believe that an opt-out system is the best approach for our shire as we go forward.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Ilka. Okay, please come forward. Just before you start, is there anyone else who wants to speak tonight? Okay, please.
Hello. My name's Jeanette Martin. I moved to Malden in February last year, and I was immediately blown away by how many people in Malden were out and about walking their dogs. Since then, council has told me that there are 169 registered dogs in Malden, and I'm impressed with how many of these dogs are on leads and are reasonably well behaved. However, I have seen people letting their dogs off lead up on Adair's track in the bush, up at the Rock of Ages and various places, so their dogs can run free. I became aware that people are still letting their dogs run on the football oval, even though there are signs that say no dogs allowed. And there are a small group of people who meet regularly in a small vacant house block for their dogs to socialise and have a run around. And there's also one dog in particular who runs flat chat up Hospital Street Hill with his owner driving the car behind. It's quite a sight to see. Fortunately, I've never seen another car come down the other way. I don't know what they do in that situation. But, I am a great fan of dog parks, and so are the 265 other people who signed the petition that we put around in Malden. It was so easy. Everybody was just, yes, 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 we need a dog park. I could have got a lot more than that. I could get another 100 in a week if we wanted to, but it seems we only needed 12. I figured 265 would do. They weren't all residents. Some of them were visitors to the town who brought their dogs with them. So, I thought they had a valid point to put across as well. Now, we dog owners understand that dogs are wonderful places, and for most dogs, not all are suited, but most dogs will get on very well with each other, socialising and running around and playing. But they're also an amazing community building facility that's beneficial for combating loneliness and social isolation. Excuse me. One of the easiest things to do in a dog park is to strike up a conversation with another dog owner about their dog, and friendships form, and they're just a wonderful, wonderful facility for a town. In relation to the report that was submitted with your agenda regarding the petition, apparently our preferred site, which is the Malden Caravan Park down the front there, was not suitable. I was very disappointed about that because, the caravan park itself is a dog-friendly caravan park, so I thought it wasn't a huge stretch to just fence off a bit of an area for a dog park for the people in the caravan park, but also for residents. The area is very beautiful. It has water, seating, trees, just no fence. It's close to town. It's not too far to go for coffee, and it's a little bit smaller than what is recommended for a dog park. They're usually recommended about 3,000 square metres, and this particular one's about 2,200 roughly. So it's a bit smaller, but it still has plenty of room for the dogs in Malden. With regard to noise, I've never known a dog park to be noisy, nor have the 8 or so people I've questioned just over this weekend over this issue. I guess you can imagine if you tried dogs running around, running amok and barking everywhere and fighting, but it actually rarely happens in a dog park. They're just a fun place to be. The report also suggests that council need to look for another site that is more suitable in size. Now, I'm not confident that there is a site in Malden that would meet that requirement. However, I have heard a whisper from someone in the community just today that there might be something in the wind that council might know about. I hope so, because Malden needs a dog park for its residents and also for the visitors who bring their dogs here. As for funding, there will be grants, I expect, from state government departments that will fund the fencing, but I have to say I've already been offered donations for the fencing and I've told them it's too early yet, we're not ready. I've run multiple crowdfunding campaigns over my 30 years of community development work, and this would be an easy one to raise money for. And the neighbourhood
Thanks,
centre.
Jeanette. Can we get to the question, please?
Okay. The question is, can Malden expect that council will establish a dog park in Malden? Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Can I ask Director of Infrastructure, Michael Lanier, for his thoughts on this, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your comments today on the report that's before council this afternoon or this evening. The matter will be discussed in a few minutes, and that will give us a direction on the future in response to the officer's report. I'm not able to share anything until the councillors around the table have deliberated on the report that's before them, but thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Jeanette. Okay, so that's all the questions for public time. Will someone move that we resume? Thank you, Councillor Maltby, and seconded by Councillor Cordy. Thank you. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So we move on to Section 8, Committee Reports. And the first one is the North Central Goldfields Regional Library Corporation Board Report. Councillor Anea, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The North Central Goldfields Regional Library Board, NCGRL, reports for its ordinary board meetings on 27 March 2026 are provided for the information of councillors at confidential attachment 8.1.1. These documents are provided for information only and no decision is required. The Director, Healthy Communities, has provided the attached reports on behalf of the NCGRL Board. And I will move that Council notes the North Central Goldfields Library Corporation Board reports for meeting on 27 March 2026.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. All those in favour and against, that's carried. At 8.2, the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes from February 2026. Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. The minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 24th of February 2026 at confidential attachment 8.2.1. And I'd also like to move, Mayor, that the Council notes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 24th of February 2026.
Thank you, Councillor. And a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So, moving on to Section 9, Officer Reports. The first one is 9.1.1, Response to Petition regarding Malden Dog Park Proposal. Would someone like to introduce this, please? Thank you, Councillor Hastwell.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's my pleasure to introduce this item. Council received a petition in January 2026 from residents requesting that Council consider the development of a dog park on a parcel of land at the Malden Caravan Park. The petition was signed by 225 people and was tabled and accepted at the meeting of Council on the 17th of February 2026. Council officers have assessed this request and have identified that the proposed location isn't suitable for a dog park as the parcels of land are too small and it is a strategically incompatible use with the Malden Caravan Park. I therefore move that Council notes the parcel of land associated with the Malden Caravan Park is not suitable for a dog park. 2, notes the identification and feasibility study of other sites for a future dog park in Malden is estimated to cost $5,000. And 3, notes that a council officer will advise the lead petitioner of the outcomes of the investigations and meeting of council.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Do we have a seconder? And
Seconded.
thank you, Councillor Mulvey. And do we have any opposition to this? Councillor Mulvey, would you like to, sorry, Councillor Hastwell, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Sure, thank you. We've just heard from the lead petitioner and received a question from her. It's been great to see the petition so strongly supported by Maldon residents and also from visitors. So thank you to those who've been involved in presenting the evidence and case for a dog park in Maldon. It's not the first time that Maldon has identified the need for a dog park in Maldon. So the Tarrangower Tomorrow Community Plan identified this, but it has not been actively explored by council until now. We do know that dogs are great for well-being, counteracting loneliness, isolation, promoting social connection, and there is great value in a dog park for both dogs and their owners. So there have been previous investigations, as indicated in the officer's report, regarding the development of dog parks in towns across the Shire in 2012, 2017 and 2019, but these did not include Maldon and were focused on Castlemaine only. There have continued to be approaches to council, especially from Maldon and Castlemaine, and so up until now there hasn't been a feasibility study for Maldon, and the petition has contributed significantly to understanding the evidence and the need for one in Maldon. The report suggests that with budget support, a site identification and feasibility study is able to be undertaken in 26 and 27.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mulvey, would you like to speak now or reserve your own?
Now's fine.
Thank you.
As Councillor Hastwell says, dog parks are a very important asset to a community, and as a council, we need to continue to look at areas where dog parks are needed. For example, I've started work with the other councillors and the officers to find one in Campbell's Creek, which is 100% necessary. And I'm sure there's other villages like Harcourt and maybe even Newstead that don't have great bushland that a dog can run openly by itself. So yes, let us hope that more work continues and we do get some. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak on this? Thank you, Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the petitioners for putting this together. I absolutely appreciate and understand the value of dog parks. For the Shire, I think they're incredibly valuable, and Maldon being the second biggest population centre of our Shire is absolutely deserving, as would the satellite areas, which Councillor Maltby mentioned as well. I think what really jumped out to me is the recommendation that these are really small parcels of land, and I think there's no example better than our only dog park in Wesley Hill for an example of the limits to the use of a small dog park. And I'm just noting on sizes, Director Anniers kindly told me the Wesley Hill dog park is approximately 2,500 metres squared, and the proposed dog parks are 2,145 or 1,280. And I've spent a lot of time talking to constituents about the need for dog parks, and primarily the need for a much larger dog park than the one that we currently have. It's the feedback I'm getting is it's just too small to exercise a large amount of dogs. And I think it's potentially a lesson that this Shire's learnt previously. Although it does serve a really important purpose in Wesley Hill, there's a much better value, I think, in going to something that will service all dogs, including the big ones that like to run far and fast. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak on this? Councillor Hastwell, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Maltby and Councillor Maddock, for your comments there. Clearly, there has been quite a lot of excitement locally about the proposed site, and at the same time, it's council's responsibility to ensure that in any investment in infrastructure is aligned with best practice and takes into account a number of considerations. The officer's report also highlights the fact that council officers are currently undertaking a strategic assessment of the future of the Maldon Caravan Park. One of the issues identified is that the small size and the limited number of sites at the caravan park restricts the financial viability of the caravan park, and excising land from the caravan park would constrain the site further. And officers point out that this should not occur while council officers are undertaking all efforts to increase the success of the park. So while the current footprint, if you like, for the caravan park itself is small, there is land immediately adjacent that could potentially be considered for further caravan park purposes. Part of that land is the land that was put forward to council as a proposed site for the dog park. So we need to consider not just what is there now, but what might need to happen in order to ensure that the caravan park is feasible ongoing. So I've had quite a bit of discussion with the officers responsible for the report, and I think they've done a really thorough job. I've asked similar questions to our lead petitioner, and I also am assured that officers have referred to guidelines. We don't actually have any Australian standards as such for dog parks, but we do have best practice and guidelines, and it is the responsibility of council to look at what those are when making such key decisions. So I understand, the passion with which the community might attach to a particular site, but I'm also aware that council officers are aware of a number of other sites that could potentially be feasible for a dog park. So we need to undertake that process to really check out and be sure that the investment, if the dog park goes ahead, that the investment is the best one. So I commend to my fellow councillors that we support the recommendations as read.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. So we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So at 9.1.2, a proposed order of council for management of domestic animals. Councillor Maddock, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this paper is to seek adoption of the draft order of council, setting out the control of dogs in public places and cats across Mount Alexander Shire. At the meeting of council on the 16th of December 2025, council adopted its domestic animal management plan 2026 to 2029. An integral part of the domestic animal management plan is a review of existing orders of council made under section 26(2) of the Domestic Animals Act 1994. Once adopted, new orders revoke all previous orders of council made under the Act. The proposed new council order retains the control of dogs in public places from the previous order and has been updated to provide a clear framework for the control of cats across the entire Shire with the implementation of a 24-hour cat curfew. The draft order of council, if adopted, will change the enforceable confinement of cats from sunset to sunrise to all times as supported by the current domestic animal management plan. So, Mayor, I'd like to move that Council 1 adopts the draft order of council implementing a 24-hour cat curfew requiring cats to be securely confined to their owners' properties at all time. 2, approves formal notice of the decision taken by council and publication of the A, government in the publication in the A, Government Gazette, B, Midland Express via public notice, as this newspaper is circulated within the municipal district, and C, Council's public website. 3, approves a 6-month education and transition period prior to the commencement of enforcement. 4, authorises the manager development services to undertake all administrative and operational steps required to give effect to the order of council.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder, and do we have any opposition to this? We have an amendment. Okay.
Well, the mover and seconder may approve of the extra couple of words on it.
Indeed. Well, I'll let you go, Bill.
In point 2B, we add the Tarrangara Times and the Castlemaine Mail.
Okay, so that's 2B to add in Midland Express, Tarrangara Times and Castlemaine Mail prior to the bracket via public notice, Yep. Thank you, Councillor.
I'd be happy to accept that amendment, Mayor.
And Tony, the seconder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Do we have any opposition to this motion? Okay, Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further to your motion?
I will, thank you, Mayor. Referring to a local academic journal, cats have had a particularly profound impact on Australian mammals, causing or contributing to most of the 30 species extinctions in the past 250 years. I'm going to crunch some numbers to try and get a ballpark figure on the benefits of a 24-hour cat curfew in our shire. At the time of reporting, I'm told we had 1,341 registered cats. I'm going to adjust this up a little bit to account for unregistered cats, and then down again a bit more to account for cats who don't currently roam. And that's going to bring us to about 1,000 cats roaming unrestrained in our shire for the 12 hours a day. Given these roaming times, we can assume they are killing about 93 vertebrates a year on average, and that 61% of these animals killed will be native. This means our shire's roaming domestic cats are killing somewhere around 58,000 native vertebrates in our shire every year. For the rest of what I speak to, I'll be paraphrasing from the officer comments. Recent community engagement indicates strong support for full-time containment of cats. Introducing a 24-hour cat curfew provides clarity for owners, aligns with regional practice, and supports animal welfare and biodiversity outcomes. Across Victoria, councils are increasingly adopting full-time containment to address similar challenges, which has demonstrated that clear, well-communicated regulations can improve compliance, reduce impoundments, and enhance community awareness of cat welfare and environmental responsibilities. Council's climate change strategy emphasises the need for urgent and ongoing action to protect the health, economy, well-being and natural environment of the Shire in response to climate change. The strategy identifies enhancing the natural environment and supporting adaptation as long-term goals, noting that climate change is placing increasing stress on already vulnerable ecosystems. Domestic cats contribute to predation, pressure on natural wildlife, including birds, small mammals and reptiles, and play an essential role in maintaining ecosystem function and climate resilience. By preventing roaming at all times, a 24-hour cat containment requirement reduces this pressure and supports the protection and recovery of biodiversity that is increasingly affected by climate-related factors such as heat, drought, and habitat fragmentation. This is consistent with the Council's intent to enhance natural systems as part of its climate adaptation and environmental protection work. The 24-hour cat containment requirement is therefore considered a proportionate approach that balances community expectations, animal well-being, environmental stewardship, and operational practicality. It provides a clear regulatory path forward and reflects contemporary best practice in domestic animal management across the region. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll reserve my right.
Thanks, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the resolution. I think it is very necessary. I agree with the points Councillor Maddock has raised. At the same time, I do wish to put a qualifier on, and it was something raised with me by a Taradale resident who's a psychologist around the importance of cats for the mental health of many people in our shire, particularly elderly people, lonely people, that having an animal, be it a dog and a dog owner or a cat, can be very important to their mental health. I'm pleased we've got the leeway time to introduce it. There have been sort of heard stories, reports that there are some people waiting for this to be adopted. They're going to be immediately putting cages out to catch the neighbour's cat. I hope they give some time to allow this to come into place. The report does note that cost of cat containment can be anywhere between $200 to over $2,000. For some of our elderly residents on a pension who really need an animal to accompany them, that can be a prohibitive cost. So while I consider that this resolution is necessary for us to adopt, and I do support it, I do hope that some way can be helped to enable some of those elderly residents or people who need animals for mental health a time and an opportunity and support to enable them to adjust. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Anyone else like to? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd also like to reinforce similar points to Councillor Walker. I do accept the need for this introduction of 24-hour curfew, but I'm also I am concerned about the impact that this has on some of our residents who perhaps are not well off, perhaps are not well supported socially, and where it may be perceived as a real challenge in terms of how they might be able to introduce or implement the change that's required here. I'm also keen to see ways that Council can support with advice, information, and any other way that we can to facilitate that change for people. So it's very important, I think, that we recognise, as we do with dog ownership, equally the value of cat ownership to many cat owners. We do know that cats can be extraordinary companions, and they might not always be flavour of the month, but they are, and I guess you're either a cat lover or a dog lover often, but they really are wonderful companions for many people in our community, and we need to see them in that way, as well as recognising the need to contain the potential risk for wildlife, etc. So I do support the motion. At the same time, I'm keen to explore ways that Council might be able to assist people to put this into practice.
Thank you, Councillor Hastwell. Any other councillors like to speak on this? Councillor Anea.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm one of those rare people who straddles the line between cat and dog loving. But at the time when we previously made this decision, I suggested that we bring in the dusk till dawn curfew then as a kind of a stepping stone in the direction of a full cat curfew, because I felt such a big change very quickly would be challenging for both the cats and their owners. I think hearing very much what Councillor Maddock has said about the environmental destruction that cats are capable of, but also hearing other councillors talking about, giving each other a little bit of space and room to breathe while this transition happens, because I think very differently from a dog, and now I'm able to talk about both of them. you cannot just tell a cat not to go outside the property or tie it up. You can't tell a cat that council has introduced a cat curfew and you're not allowed to go outside anymore. They just do whatever they want, and they're incredibly hard to contain if they do not want to be contained. And I think particularly cats that have grown up and lived their whole lives roaming, it will take a little bit of time for them to transition to being inside cats, even if, you know, they have nice catios provided to them like what I have set up at my place. So I think giving neighbours with cats this little bit of time to get their stuff together, it's not an easy thing to make a cat stay inside after it has been allowed to roam. And I think that there can be a lot of hostility about this. And I think I've shared before that I've had an incredible number of pretty upsetting notes in my letterbox about my cats, who really don't get up to that much compared to all of my neighbours' dogs. And I think that it's not a very productive way to behave within a neighbourhood. So I think what I encourage is give each other a bit of time, but also, you know, cats will get out from time to time. They just will. We know from local Facebook groups that dogs are forever escaping and running away. And while, you know, there is an amount of blame there isn't as much demonising, I find, as when cats are roaming and their owners are just, spoken to quite poorly sometimes, I think. So while I am supportive of this, and, you know, I've let my cats know that it's coming, that that planned catio will be activating soon, it will, you know, it'll take a little while for us all to get there. And if you have friends with cats, maybe go over to their house and help them build some kind of enclosure so that their cats can still see the outside sometimes, which I think is beneficial for them too. I think this is a sensible step in the right direction, but it won't be 100% smooth because cats and people are both difficult to change habits. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anea. Anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Cordy, would you like your right to second this now?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've pretty well covered it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maddock, you have a right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, fellow councillors, for your statements of support, but also for raising concerns. And I think they are very valid. And I grew up with cats. Family members own cats. They play a very important role in people's lives and houses, and I fully appreciate that. I take some. I'm made to feel more comfortable with the introduction of this policy, looking at the compassionate grounds built into our enforcement policy. And I think Director Anea clarified some of these points when we passed the domestic animal management strategy, that there are many steps that our council and our enforcement officers will go to before we get to that enforcement stage. And I was also heartened to learn when I looked into it as well that more who handle trapped cats also have quite a compassionate policy in handling them as well, including warnings, and there may be others as well. It's been a couple months since I looked into them, but I don't think anyone's going to get slapped with fines or have their cats taken away from them immediately in the implementation of this. So I take heart from that, and I'm personally comfortable with it. And I think the benefits are quite large. And actually, no one's mentioned the benefits to cats as well. The containment significantly reduces the spread of disease and also reduces road fatalities. And we had cats. I probably lived with cats for close to 20 years as a kid, and we had many cats, and probably most of them died on our quiet suburban road in Melbourne. And it was probably one of the most traumatic things I experienced as a kid. And that would not be happening under this policy as well. So there's some very real benefits for the cats for this policy as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. So all those in favour and against, and that's carried. And I might just add there that the figures provided by Councillor Maddock at the start of his introduction are his figures. It may indeed be that many native animals are predated upon our shire. It may be less. We don't have specific data to support that, but that's an estimate of Councillor Maddock's. I too support the general principle of this wholeheartedly, but as Councillors Walker and Hastwell elucidated, I think very well and eloquently, I have very serious concerns about particular elderly residents who own cats, many of whom I've spoken to have no idea of our domestic animal management plan, and I'm concerned about what Councillor Walker referred to about overzealous neighbours trapping cats, and I'm concerned about the potential for social division on these lines. I fully support the implementation of this. I just wish we had a bit more time to do a bit more community consultation. So the next one is 9.3.1, which is Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail. Can I ask Councillor Driscoll to introduce this, please?
Yes, Mayor, sure. Thanks, Mayor. This report is to seek Council's in principle approval of the proposed operating model and in principle agreement to enter a lease at a future date with VicTrack for the land within Mount Alexander Shire for a potential Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail. Under the Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail Committee Inc. funding agreement with the state government, a preferred operating model for the future operation and management of the trail, if it is to be constructed, is to be identified. As a project partner, Council is required to indicate its preferred model. This report outlines Council's in principle position to support Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail Inc. in meeting its funding obligations. It should be noted that Council is being asked to provide in principle support to enable Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail Committee Inc. to fulfil its contractual obligations. Council's formal position on the project will be sought once construction funding is fully secured and detailed financial considerations are available. And Mayor, I'd like to recommend this as printed, please.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Any opposition? Thank you, Councillor.
Can I ask the Director of Infrastructure a question before I speak?
Not yet, because we're going to go back to Matt if he wants to speak further to his.
This concerns.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. Yep,
Clarity.
sure.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you,
Councillor Driscoll. So, Director Anea, this proposed plan, does it allow the actual trail to be on what is currently or was currently the railway line?
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Maltby. So today, the Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail Inc. have been informed that there is permission for the trail to be constructed on the rail abutment, effectively where the railway line used to run. So that has been a change since the time of this report being written.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councillor.
Now, I'd like to speak against the motion.
Well, we'll just
Yep, right.
let Matt want to speak. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yes. Thanks, Mayor. Look, the proposed Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail is a 61-kilometre shared use trail linking Castlemaine to Maryborough, along a disused rail corridor passing through several of our towns at Campbell's Creek, Guildford, Newstead. We were briefed on this back in 26th of March 2024 in response to a budget request to support the pre-construction grant application to enabling the Tourist Fund. And we as a council committed to support the completion of the pre-construction phase. Council did not commit to support the future implementation of the rail trail. The project can be recognised in three distinct areas. One is the feasibility, which has been complete. The next one is the pre-construction, which is underway. And then we've got the construction. Mount Alexander Shire Council and Central Goldfields Shire Council jointly support this feasibility study delivered by the Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail and with funding from the Regional Development Victoria and community fundraising, and also our own council's contributions. Both councils have provided significant in-kind council officer support to support this, the procurement, grant management and development of the feasibility. That's all I have to say at this stage. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Now, as seconder, Councillor Hastwell, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Happy to speak now. Thank
Thank
you, Mayor. I want to comment that this is obviously a highly ambitious and visionary project. It's being driven by Castlemaine Maryborough Rail Trail Inc. and has garnered quite significant community support. It could potentially enhance tourism, economic development, and also recreational opportunities for local bike riders. Spanning 61 kilometres, the shared use trail would connect Castlemaine and Maryborough, as Councillor Driscoll has mentioned, via Guildford and Newstead in our own shire, and also through Mullort and Carisbrook in Central Goldfields Shire. Currently, of course, we're very much at the pre-construction stage, and there is no guarantee that the very substantial funds that would be required to construct the trail will be made available. And so the proposed operating model is, at this stage, very much dependent on further details on costings. Currently, construction cost alone is estimated at 37 million, and that does not include operating costs, maintenance costs, etc., which will be ongoing. So there will need to be decisions by council about the affordability and relative value and lights going on and whether that's useful as well. So do we stand up and wave? Thanks, Ben. Yes, so decisions about affordability, and that I should say that clearly the power going out does not indicate that council hasn't paid its power bill. So whether or not this becomes a priority project of council or not. So with those considerations in mind, in principle support for the proposed operating model involving both our own shire and Central Goldfields Shire, and with the input of an independent advisory committee, does not commit council to establishing the working group or advisory group, nor taking on responsibility for future phases of the project. There's still a long way to go before council could be in a position to potentially fully commit. So funding would need to be received to construct the trail, and council would need to be satisfied with taking on the financial implications of the clarified model, including long-term operational and maintenance costs. At this stage, I'm comfortable with the proposed in-principle support for the operating model and to entering a lease with VicTrack as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now?
Thanks, Mayor. Whilst I can agree that it's an important physical activity to have a rail trail between Castlemaine and Maryborough, the original reports given to us were that it was on the side of what was the railway line. And why I'm against it now is because, as Director Anea has said, they can now build on the actual railway line. If I give you a little bit of history, back in the 1960s through to probably the 1990s, a single carriage diesel passenger train, ran from Maryborough to Castlemaine at least 4 times a day and was packed with people, some hopping off and shopping here, some hopping off and getting on the Melbourne train. It was also a major freight line, and that only stopped maybe 20 years ago. The poor Maryborough people, and I know a lot of them, now have to have 2 trains a day to Ballarat and 2 back, or they have to drive into Ballarat to catch a train. If we think about the comments tonight about the petrol price increases and they're not going to drop, why wouldn't you reopen a railway line that has a proven historical record of being used, and you could still have your rail trail running on the side of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Any other councillors like to speak for or against this motion? Thank you, Councillor Maddock.
I'll be speaking for. Thank you, Mayor. And I think, and these points might have already been highlighted, but the two that stand out really importantly to me is the potential, both the tourism and visitation benefits of this project, keeping in mind that cyclists can potentially catch the train to Maryborough. If they're ambitious, ride to Castlemaine, spend the night in Castlemaine, catch a train home back to Melbourne or vice versa, and that this is I think a very attractive rail trail ride to do because of that, and that there is a very strong rail trail touring tradition in this state, in this country, and that they are very well supported. The other is for local mobility options, and I think particularly the link between Guildford and Castlemaine is a very important one. It is potentially commutable, particularly with the event of electric bikes that we see around so much. So these intertown links have the very real possibility of taking cars off our road, freeing up car spaces in town, and creating a very low carbon intensive way of getting around the Shire. So for that reason, I really like it. And I'll just finish by reading briefly from the climate impact statement here, which is, as a regional active transport corridor, the project directly supports Council's climate change strategy, particularly Council's goals to reduce transport emissions, increase active mobility and build resilient low carbon communities. By encouraging walking and cycling within and between townships, the trail has the potential to reduce reliance on private vehicle use and contribute to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across the municipality. And I think the points that Councillor Maltby raised about the use of the rail corridor as a rail corridor, and they have been spoken about to some length in this. They are a good point. I think obviously cost prohibitive or impractical if our state government is going to give permission for it to be on the abutment. And while that is, it's a sad thing, I'd love to see a train going between it as well. Maybe not as sad as seeing it sit vacant for however many more decades. It's great to see land used, particularly for active transport. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Any other councillors like to speak for or against this motion? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, what's before us here tonight isn't about building the rail trail. It's about doing some further investigation and facilitating that. So, yeah, look, I support it. Like my dear colleague, Councillor Maltby, I've got friends in Maryborough, and it'd be really great to have a walking or cycling track between Castlemaine and Maryborough, and it could really put us on the map. These things are all the go these days, so could be really good for the tourist dollar. So I'm totally in support of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Anyone else like to speak for or against this motion? Councillor Driscoll, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to sum up, this request to provide in principle support enables the CMRT to finalise its commitments under the grant agreement with the Enabling Tourism Fund for the pre-construction phase, and I hope that councillors will support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, so all those in favour and against, and that's carried. A division, certainly. Councillor Maltby has called for a division. So can I ask you again, councillors, all those in favour and against? Thank you. That's carried. And I know I'm not the only one who shares Councillor Maltby's enthusiasm for fixed rail transport between Castlemaine and Maryborough, but I emphasise Councillor Cordy's position that this particular motion is not about funding the building of the rail trail or, for that matter, supporting the reinstatement of passenger rail service. This is about signing some contracts so that the planning for this can proceed. And I might add too that amongst the community of supporters of the Castlemaine-Maryborough Rail Trail, or the Maryborough-Castlemaine Rail Trail as I knew it, I declared my hand as being in favour of fixed rail, and that if the choice was between recommissioning a railway line or building a cycle path, I'd be favouring the former. And it might be of interest to councillors to know that anecdotally on those occasions, a very good number of CMRT members also expressed that same desire to see the fixed rail restored, and it further expressed that position of councils here that there's no reason why, with some imagination, that both can't be achieved in the long term. But I'm grateful to you councillors for that rich and interesting debate. Thank you. It might also interest Councillor Maltby to know that the Victorian Goldfields Railway have recently purchased one of those Walker Rail motors, for what it's worth. Oh, the diesel one, okay. Okay, so moving on to 9.4.1 is the Castlemaine Caravan Park Rent Review. Councillor Maltby, can I ask you to introduce this, please?
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to advise councillors of the outcome of the market rent review for the Castlemaine Caravan Park and to seek approval for the negotiated rental schedule for the period July 2024 to June 2028. The lease for the Castlemaine Caravan Park allows for a market rent review on the 50-year anniversary of the commencement date for the term of the lease. The review process has been protracted due to complexities of professional valuations. A negotiated rental outcome has been reached that increases rent over the 5-year period to a value of $235,000 per annum by 2027-2028, totaling $921,558 plus GST over the term. The stepped approach balances council's financial return with the tenant's capacity to manage change and continue investment in the Castlemaine Caravan Park. And Mr. Mayor, I'll move the recommendation as printed.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Is there any opposition to this? Thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thank you. It's a good result that there is a rent increase for council as the owner of the property, and it doesn't put too much pressure on the current tenant. And the current tenant has a great reputation for running one of the best caravan parks in Victoria, and it allows her to plan her next few years on the track. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Speak now. Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of our executive on this, but also in particular our property portfolio coordinator, Lynn Williamson. There's been a huge amount of work going on here, and really appreciate the efforts of all concerned. And yeah, the negotiated outcome is very good, and it'd be good to see this come to fruition down the track. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Anyone else like to speak to this? Thank you, Councillor Hastwell.
I'd just like to briefly highlight a couple of key areas from my perspective in the report. So the report acknowledges the rationale for the economic benefit of caravan parks in the Shire, which includes, of course, principally Castlemaine Caravan Park, which we're considering tonight, which has reached a stage of effective performance through investment and effective management by the current tenant, who has had a particular focus on the experience of caravan, what do we call them, caravanners? So people with caravans in caravan parks, and she's been very much recognised for the efforts and the effectiveness of what she's done there. According to the Caravan Industry Association of Victoria in 2022, every $1 spent on caravan park accommodation results in an additional $1.53 spent in the local community. So alongside the smaller Maldon Caravan Park, this is a key piece of infrastructure that, when performing well, delivers significant benefit to our important visitor economy. I also note that the revised development plan is a key part of ensuring that infrastructure at the park and safety issues are addressed appropriately. While the implementation of the development plan may also involve council staff, the tenant will be required to pay for any services delivered by council officers, including potential support with project management. Once again, as with Councillor Cordy, I really respect and am grateful for the effort and the discussions that our officers have undertaken with the owner of the park to reach this agreed position.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillors like to speak for this motion or to this motion? Okay, Councillor Maltby, your right of reply.
I think the motion says it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So 9.4.2 is the renewal of VicTrack leases, Castlemaine and Newstead. I'll ask Councillor Driscoll to introduce this, please.
Thanks, Mayor. I seek approval for council officers to commence negotiations with VicTrack with a view of entering into a new head leases with VicTrack for Castlemaine Railway Land and the Newstead Railway Station. The renewal of the head leases will enable continued community use through subleases to the Castlemaine's Lions Club and also the Newstead Arts Hub. The proposed approach will ensure security of tenure for both groups while enabling council to comply with the Local Government Act 2020, which requires community engagement prior to leasing land for 10 years or more. And Mayor, I'd like to recommend as printed, please.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder for this? Thanks you, Councillor Corder. Any opposition to this? Thank you. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Under the community use of vacant railway buildings program, the VicTrack kindly restores disused station buildings in regional towns so they can be used by local community groups. This program has benefited of bringing station buildings back to life while providing community groups with new space that they can enjoy. The restored buildings might also provide a boost for regional economy by attracting tourists and visitors to rural towns. Council has entered into head leases with VicTrack and has established sub-leases with the community groups for the occupation of use of VicTrack properties. These include the sublease at Castlemaine's Lion Club for Castlemaine Railway Land and initially Newstead 2021, who facilitated the sublease for Newstead Arts Hub for the Newstead Railway Station building, and also the Harcourt Progress Association for the Harcourt Railway Station. The head leases and the sub-leases for the Castlemaine and Newstead properties have expired and now in monthly overholding, so both community groups have expressed interest to formalise their ongoing occupation and enter a new sublease for their respective premises. This requires council to enter the head lease with VicTrack. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Look, I'll speak now, just briefly, Mayor. It's getting late. It's this is really important. VicTrack will only lease these properties to the likes of council, and we have a reciprocal lease arrangement or back-to-back lease arrangement with the Arts Hub and the Lions, respectively. The Arts Hub one, the Newstead one, was very interesting because I think it was put through as urgent special business in my early days on council, and that doesn't happen very often. And yeah, it's turned out to be a great thing. And I'd also like to acknowledge that what a great organisation our local Lions Club is. So very important that we get this approved for the security of both those great organisations. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Thank you. Councillor Driscoll, your right of reply.
Just that both organisations, the Castlemaine Lions Club and the Newstead Arts Hub, are great organisations, very enthusiastic people, and they're great facilities there. So I'm hoping for support for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. Thank you. And I'm reminded from Councillor Maltby's earlier comments tonight about just that when we think about that explosion of railway building in the late 19th century in Victoria, how we continue to benefit from that incredible investment made over 150 years ago, in this case, the Castlemaine-Maryborough Railway Line. And we think about what extraordinary value the Newstead Arts Hub is to that local community, not just for the local community, but also for tourism. The same can be said, of course, for the Castlemaine Lions Club land, and they've been there as long as I can remember, and I believe that the Lions Club were instrumental in getting that park at the railway station, still a very popularly used site. So I'm thrilled if we can enter into a new lease arrangement with VicTrack over these really important sites. Thank you, councillors. And thanks for letting me indulge in a little bit of railway history there, and you can count yourselves lucky that didn't turn into a half-hour dissertation, but we can do that later if there's an appetite. So moving on to 9.5.1, Aged Care Progress Update Quarter 1. Can I ask Councillor Annear to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with clear, data-driven assurance regarding the delivery of safe, quality aged care services during the reporting period. Council continues to deliver community-based aged care services across Mount Alexander Shire and to Department of Veterans Affairs clients in Central Goldfields Shire. Council currently supports 973 active clients, with demand stabilised in line with service capacity and agreed targets. Council remains the sole local government aged care provider in the Loddon Mallee region, with governance and oversight arrangements continuing to mature to align with the aged care reforms. Services have been delivered safely and consistently during the reporting period, despite significant sector reforms, workforce pressures, implementation of software, and impacts of the recent bushfire event. Quality and safety data indicates risks are being appropriately identified and managed. Incident and complaint trends remain stable, with no indicators of systemic quality or safety concerns. Client feedback continues to reflect positive experience with staff, service delivery, and social connection. Some outstanding assessments and reviews remain due to legacy impacts and increased complexity associated with new care planning and client agreement requirements under the aged care reforms. These are being actively managed through workforce adjustments, prioritisation of higher risk clients, and ongoing process refinements. Overall, Council has formed strong foundations for aged care reform readiness and continues to embed governance, workforce and quality systems to ensure ongoing delivery of safe, quality aged care services. And I will move that Council notes the Aged Care Progress Update Quarter 1.
Thank you, Councillor Annear. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Any opposition, councillors? Councillor Annear, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thank you. What we have in front of us is a very thorough report on the current state, well, not slightly outdated, but almost current state of play of our aged care services. So we're not exactly in the position that we would have liked to be when we made the decision because of some delays happening at a federal level, which are affecting our ability to deliver services. But more than that, they're affecting the older people who need these services. Despite that, as it says, we've got just under 1,000 clients receiving services from us, and these are primarily through the Commonwealth Home Support Program. We've also got some funding through Veterans Home Care and the Victorian Home and Community Care Program for younger people. And we're delivering some services to home care package clients who are now support at home clients through a brokerage arrangement. This report covers a whole plethora of stuff. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of bits that I think are important. Reading this, one of the things I think that stood out was obviously as a shire, we've been affected by the fire in Harcourt. There were some of our clients who were fire affected, particularly that resulted in them not receiving services, as well as some of them needing to be relocated. And some, I think, probably have not been able to return home as that is all continuing. But that has been handled to the best of our abilities. In terms of our workforce and capability, we've currently got 30 direct care workers, and this includes 6 trainees who are nearing completion of their qualifications. And 3 new direct care worker trainees will commence this year as well. We've also got 19 volunteers who provide social support and transportation services to some of our clients, and they are much appreciated. I know one year I attended the kind of Christmas breakup for the older people receiving the social support services as well as the volunteers, and it was incredibly joyful. A really, really lovely thing to see how high regard all of those people had for each other. We're currently in the process of getting our registration right. We are trying to register to deliver services in categories 1 to 4. And down the track, hopefully 5 as well. Category 1 is home and community services. 2 is assistive technology and home modifications. 3 is advisory and support. And 4 is personal and care support. So these are the things we kind of already offer. And when hopefully, or maybe not, there is a transition to support at home down the track, we would want to be able to provide those same services. There have been a lot of problems with the transition to the support at home program, and these are, I think, not evening out in the way that anyone would have liked. There's quite a lot of pushback at the federal level at the moment, particularly through an alliance, which are lobbying to keep support at home separate from the program that we currently have, the CHSP program, which they argue would work and is working if it was better resourced and better managed, and that the flexibility that it offers can actually provide our aged care clients better services than what they may be able to access under the support at home program. Some of the problems being faced with the support at home program are around increased out-of-pocket costs associated with service delivery, so people cannot afford the services that they need. That one of the statistics in here, or the numbers in here, some clients reporting charges about up to $80 plus per shower, which seems a little unreasonable. One of the other things that has been a problem is the very complex nature of trying to fill out the financial hardship applications. So for people who are struggling financially, obviously older people anyway sometimes have a little bit of difficulty filling out forms, especially if they're online. And from what I've heard, these are incredibly challenging. Wait lists are another big problem across the board. Locally here, we have about 400 clients currently waiting for approximately 700 services on My Aged Care. And kind of across the country, nobody is really saying how many people are on the actual wait list. There's not a number being declared on that, but it's in the hundreds of thousands and it's not getting any better. And again, the people who are facing the brunt of this are the older people who are not receiving the care or the services that they need. I think one of the other problems, which I was able to have a great discussion with our acting director, Rosalie Rogers, sitting behind me, about the algorithm that basically decides what level of service that you get, and the frustrations that even though the assessment is conducted by a health care clinician or an aged care clinician, the algorithm is able to override their thoughts and what they think that the older person, what services they should receive, and it's not great in terms of I think it's being kind of compared to that robo-debt kind of stuff, and we all know where that led. I think while obviously there's a lot going on and we still kind of don't know the exact nature that all this is going to shake out, what I can say, and what this report says really well, is that we are doing our absolute best for our local clients and for our incoming clients. We are meeting all our legislated actions, and from this here, this is the client satisfaction survey. Having a read of this just before the meeting, this is, again, it takes me back to the reason why we made a decision to remain in aged care when nobody else around us has, because our clients, the people who are looked after, it is absolutely in their best interest that we continue to provide this service for them. And I think reading this and reading the other nice feedback scattered through this from clients and their families, again, kind of reinforces that idea that while maybe everything is not happening as we would have liked it to, and having it all be a bit clearer, easier, just knowing what's going on some of the time would be ideal. I still believe that staying in aged care is the right decision at this time. And this report says all that. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Acting Director Rosalie Rogers, who's behind me, for all her hard work and her team's hard work, because this is a lot, and just trying to get my head around it is huge. And Rosalie lives and breathes this. So we're very grateful to have such fantastic officers holding this work for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anea. Councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mayor. As Councillor Anea said, the previous council made that decision, and we were one of the few in the whole country, actually. And it's one of the best decisions in my experience as a councillor that has happened. And if I'm correct, CEO, we've nearly got 1,000 clients. Yep. And just to add a bit of reality to the situation, there was a satisfaction survey done in November 25, and I'll just read a couple of comments from the people that are being served. Your people are fabulous. One could not ask for better, excellent staff. They're all very polite and do anything I ask them to do. They're always happy and smiling. Nothing is ever a problem to them. I'm so grateful to have them coming to me. And a bit further, transport to Kangaroo Flat Aquatic Centre generally improves my fitness, helping my back. Wonderful service, it provides companionship and brings joy into our lives, thank you. So it's not just the actual cleaning and cooking or whatever, it's giving those people that are getting elderly friendship and companionship.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks particularly Councillor Anea for such a comprehensive outline and I guess commentary on the report that's before us. The rollout of community-based aged care services is clearly taking place under the pressures of the scale and complexity of significant sector reforms. We've heard and we understand there are workforce pressures, implementation of software, and of course the impacts of the recent bushfire event, which presents some real challenges. At the same time, really appreciative of the progress that is being made on embedding essential governance, workforce and quality systems. The report's risk analysis identifies that there are still currently high levels of risk in the areas of change, financial and regulatory risk as a result of these external factors, and that we are in a dynamic environment which needs to be watched closely. We have excellent officers managing these risks, and we very much appreciate their commitment and expertise. I look forward to the next quarterly report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. And Rosie went and took all my highlighted points from there. So I quickly found some others, and then Bill took the satisfaction survey results. But I'll just say thank you to Acting Director Rogers for all your work and sitting on the acting council representative on the Clinical Governance Committee. I see you and your team at work, and I'm thoroughly impressed with that. Maybe just to highlight a few things that haven't already, because I think everything's been really well covered, is just the way that the feedback and the incidents are, I think, picked over is a fair way of putting it, and interrogated to make sure there's not major or systemic problems brewing. And I'm just really convinced at very impressed at the thoroughness that you and the team act on those. And also it's a nice section of those meetings where we do go over the compliments as well. And it's clear that the value for the staff and the appreciation of the services is, as is indicated in the satisfaction survey, overwhelmingly reported. And there's some very nice quotes in here, and there's more. I won't read them out, but there's some very good ones. So thank you, Acting Director Rogers, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Our aged care services are highly valued by clients, families, carers and the community. Feedback from the community is incredibly positive, with clients incredibly grateful for the services. As a responsible person in the aged care with here, I feel as if I'm kept in the loop and on top of things with these regular reports. So I thank the team for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Okay, Councillor O'Neill, you have the right of reply.
I think I'm okay.
Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And I just join my fellow councillors in congratulating Rosalie Rogers and her team, not just for this very thorough and robust report, but for all of the regular updates that we're getting in this very important area of council work. So thank you. So 9.5.2 is Audit and Risk Committee Charter 2026. Can I ask Councillor Maltby to introduce this, please?
Thank you. The Audit and Risk Committee review the Audit and Risk Committee Charter on an annual basis. The committee reviewed and endorsed the Charter at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on Tuesday, 24th of February 2026. The committee recommends to Council the approval of the Charter at the next meeting of Council. This report seeks Council's approval of the Audit and Risk Committee Charter 2026, and I'll move that Council notes the Audit and Risk Committee has reviewed, endorsed and recommends to Council the approval of the Audit and Risk Committee Charter 2026, and 2, approves the Audit and Risk Committee Charter 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Anyone want to speak against this? Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Basically, Mr. Mayor, the motion says it all. The Audit and Risk Committee have done their work, and they're more than hard working on that committee, and they're asking for us to approve the charter as we go forward.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Walker, do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve, Mayor.
Okay. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now?
I think Councillor Maltby's covered it all pretty well, Mayor.
Councillor Maltby, you have a right of reply.
I think Councillor Walker's comment is the right answer.
Thank you, councillors. All those in favour and against? Thank you. And I just add that we'll note that in the actions section here, pretty much all completed. It's a pretty thorough lot of work that the Audit and Risk Committee has overseen here. And sticking with Audit and Risk, 9.5.3, Audit and Risk Committee Performance Self-Assessment for 2025. Councillor Walker, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, the Audit and Risk Committee's charter, the Audit and Risk Committee must undertake an annual assessment of its performance against the charter. Further to this, the committee must provide a copy of the annual assessment to the Chief Executive Officer for tabling at the next council meeting. AFS Bendigo were contracted to distribute a survey to the 6 members of the committee to self-assess the committee's performance against the charter. 5 of the 6 recipients completed the survey. The results of the annual self-assessment provide an opportunity for the committee to consider what worked well in 2025 and where improvements can be made for future years. So I'd move, Mayor, that Council receives and notes the results of the 2025 Audit and Risk Committee self-assessment.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Neer. Anyone want to speak against this motion? Councillor Walker, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. It might sound a bit like bureaucratese, and I have to admit in my life I hadn't expected to be assessing audit and risk, but there is a learning curve that's very positive with everything. The self-assessment statement is quite interesting reading. A couple of very strong points come through. In the committee has shown openness to new ideas and different views in its deliberations. Plus, the committee has the desired mix of skills to allow it to effectively discharge its responsibilities, both quite important. Generally, the committee's ranked itself very well. One identified there was a couple of areas where they feel they've gone down against 2024. One in particular was reviewing the internal audit charter to ensure that appropriate structures, authority, access and reporting arrangements are in place. They will be focused on rectifying this immediately. So overall, it gives a pretty positive response as to how the Audit and Risk Committee is functioning. I think we've had other reports on how we're getting very good reports from them. So I am happy to move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Neer.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like sometimes I worry that I'm not able to speak at length on audit and risk, as I am with some of the other items, but I've realised it is because the whole point of having an audit and risk committee is that the people who are on that committee do it for me, so I don't have to understand it all. And what I've learnt from being part of that committee on occasion is that they are incredibly competent people who do absolutely know all about this stuff that I don't really know as much about. And just the things that they think about and the questions that they ask are just things that I would never even come near. And it's really been very positive to be a part of that when I am, because it does help me to understand things a little bit more myself. In terms of this self-assessment, I think getting 5 out of 6 of us to come back with responses is fantastic, because I think the year before it was only 3. So that's fantastic. And I think from reading the statements, it's going really well. And from sitting in the room at Audit and Risk, you can tell it's going really well. Even the things that the curly questions that are sometimes asked, they're not too curly. And I think we've really reached a place with Audit and Risk where the committee is functioning incredibly well. We've got a fantastic mix of members on it, and the relationship between audit and risk and council is really good as well. So it all feels pretty positive, and I think that you can see that in the strength of the self-assessment statements. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Annear. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Walker, you have a right of reply.
Mayor, I think it's all pretty well covered.
Okay, all those in favour and against? We'll conduct that vote again. All those in favour and against? And that's carried. Thank you, councillors. And special thanks to to the whole team who put that together, to the Audit and Risk Committee, as Councillor Annear has outlined. They really are an outstandingly qualified and diverse group of professionals. And I share many of Councillor Annear's feelings about that committee. I often spend a lot of time there, hopefully looking like I know what is going on, sometimes Googling things on the side. But I'm happy to report, councillors, that always, by the end of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, I do feel like I've understood, or I understand the importance of each of the items that's been raised. It's an enormous amount of work overseeing audit and risk, and I want to make a big shout out to our Director of Corporate Services, Julie Landy, and especially Manager of Governance and Risk, Leanne Brown, for their work in steering this committee and in bringing these excellent and thorough reports before us. One more elephant in the room, as I think Councillor Walker outed. I was the recalcitrant one of 6 who did not fill in the self-assessment, but you'll note that this was circulated in January 2026, and all of us on council were terrifically busy in January 2026, not least the Mayor. So that's my excuse for now. And I'm heartened to learn that previous years there weren't so many who responded. That makes me look less tardy. So thank you, Councillor Annear, for adding that in, your comment. But again, thanks to all, and especially thanks to Leanne and the Audit and Risk Committee for their great work. Okay, so 9.5.4, staying. Oh, hang on. Sorry, have I missed one? We're up to 9. We're up to the biennial report, aren't we? Yeah, 9.5.4. Audit and Risk Committee biannual report, 2025. Sorry, July 2025 to December 2025. Can I ask Councillor Cordy to introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. This report provides a summary of the work undertaken by Council's Audit and Risk Committee for the period 1st of July 2025 to 31st December 2025. The Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, on behalf of the committee, presents this report to Council. And I'll move the recommendation that Council receives and notes the content of the Audit and Risk Committee's biannual report for the period 1st July 2025 to 31st December 2025. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. And do we have any opposition to this? Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Just briefly, look, we've got a fantastic Audit and Risk Committee working very hard and well supported by our executive team. Just looking there in the report, the summaries of the activities undertaken, and it's a huge amount of work, all sorts of things covered, like fraud prevention, internal environment or control environment, financial and performance reporting, lots of things covered up. It's a really complex area of checks and balances. So a huge shout out to the Audit and Risk Committee, and keep doing the great work, and I commend this report to my fellow councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Driscoll, do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I think I'll reserve my right, thank you.
As is your right. Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to highlight 3 items from the report which particularly concerning to me, I'm sure other councillors, and I'm pleased to see the Audit and Risk Committee dealing with it. One is the risk, financial risk, where they state the risk has been expanded to recognise the impact on financial sustainability of changes to legislation and government policy. This includes the impact of rate capping along with the impact of policy and legislation. And it goes on. It's a growing concern to me, the financial pressures on local government as demand for services increase, and I'm good to see the Audit and Risk Committee considering that. Secondly,
excuse me, sorry, Councillor Walker, I think you might have jumped ahead. I think you might have done. I mean, it's a really creative reflection on the Audit and Risk Annual Report, but I think you might be on 9.5.5 there.
Through it.
And I'm an enthusiast for creative thinking on these reports, but I think maybe that's okay. Did you have something you want to contribute to the debate on 9.5.4? Okay. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of things, 2 risk management activities that are still work in progress. That's the risk appetite statement review and the strategic risk review, which I believe the Audit and Risk Committee will review that for the next reporting period. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Cordy, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. In summary, great committee, doing a great job, and congratulate them on their work, and also our key staff that work with them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And so moving on to 9.5.5, which is also on risk, strategic risks 6-monthly review. This is quarters 1 and 2 of 2025 and 2026. Can I ask Councillor Hastwell to introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, happy to. And of course, it's probably not a great surprise that Councillor Walker might have launched into some commentary. These reports are, of course, quite closely related. So in summary, Council is committed to the continuous uplift of organisational risk maturity with a focus on embedding strong risk management practices and culture across all areas of the organisation. In 2025, the executive team approved the Risk Maturity Improvement Plan, the RMIP, a structured and holistic program designed to enhance risk management maturity and strengthen oversight of both operational and strategic risks. A key objective of the RMIP is to improve organisational line of sight to strategic and operational risks, enabling more targeted monitoring and timely adjustment of risk mitigations. In alignment with this objective, the structure of the operational and strategic risk registers was reviewed and updated in 2025 with endorsement from the executive team and also the Audit and Risk Committee. As part of the risk maturity